Hi, and welcome to today's Daily Chronicle. Today is September 26th, 2024. Why Nevada's housing crisis is about more than Californians driving up home prices. Lauren Tuville on the left and James Watts with their dogs Zena and Desi in their home in downtown Las Vegas on September 24th, 2024. Las Vegas. James Watts, a third-generation Las Vegan, and his partner Lauren Tuville just fulfilled a dream that currently might feel out of reach for many longtime Nevada residents. They bought a house, but their purchase was hard fought. Watts said they would tour a house only to learn that somebody had already put an offer on it without ever having even seen it. We definitely got our hopes up and then dashed many times because we would go to a house and be like, oh my god, it's perfect, he said. Like, we're going to put an offer in and then hear from the realtor that 3 offers are already in above asking. Finding a home to buy was difficult for Watts. Unlike for some of the 40% of the new Nevada residents coming from California. Those newcomers have an average home income level about 93% higher than Nevada residents who move within the state, according to a 2024 report by the Lied Center for a Real Estate at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. The demand for more houses, paired with those higher California incomes, has made it more difficult for residents earning Nevada wages to keep up with the housing market, both in buying and renting. I don't know what kind of money you must have to be able to put an offer on a house without even looking at it, Watts said. The cost of living here is likely to weigh on voters this year. So as part of the NPR's We the Voters series, we asked locals how they're experiencing higher costs. Why is buying a home so expensive? Californians play a role, but that's not all. Nevada realtor Christine Bullard has seen how Californians moving here have driven up housing prices for the past 15 years. They sell their house there and they buy 2 here, Bullard said. They can easily pay cash, often over the asking price. Real estate agent Christine Bullard waits for potential home buyers inside an open house in Las Vegas, Nevada on September 20th, 2024. Apartments outside an open house in Las Vegas, Nevada on September 20th, 2024. The average wage does not support anything close to the average housing prices here, Bullard said. There's more people you know, mom, dad, and grandma buying the houses together. The multi-generational has taken off so much here, and it's because of things like that. Watts and Tuville were able to make their purchase by getting a loan for $350,000 and locking in at a 6.6% interest rate, which is really great for right now, Watts said. They also scraped together $20,000 for a down payment with the help of family members. Anybody that lives here, if you're spending, as much as you are in rent, you might as well buy it, Watts said. I think if anyone has the ability to do it, they should do it. Renting has gone harder too. Corey Dillard, 55, makes around $30,000 annually as an Uber driver. Dillard says sometimes he struggles to pay his rent of $800, which used to be $650 when he moved in 2 years ago. If you work a lot of hours, if you work 10 to 12 hours a day, then yes, it is possible, he said. He's considered burdened under federal guidelines since he spends more than 30% of his monthly income on rent. About 70% of low-income Nevadans are also considered to be cost-burdened by their housing costs, according to a 2024 report from the National Low-Income Housing Coalition. Dillard wants to own a home one day, and despite struggling with rent at the times, thinks he can become a homeowner in the next 3 years if he finds a partner to split the costs. Dillard said he'd want to be married before buying a home with a partner, but isn't in any rush to find one. I'm not searching high and low, but if it does come and we're on that level, I feel like you need to be married if you want to buy a house, Dillard said. Renters like him across the state are feeling the squeeze. We have a profound shortage of affordable housing in the state, said Nicholas Barr, an assistant professor at the School of Social Work at the University of Las Vegas, Nevada. Siegel suits flexible stay apartments in Las Vegas, Nevada. Nicholas Barr, an assistant professor. Nevada is short 78,000 affordable renting housing units, according to an estimate from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. Between 2019 and 2023, rent in the Las Vegas metro area increased by 34%, while wages during that period only increased by 14%, according to a 2024 report from housing listing site Zillow. I think it's an interesting juxtaposition here to see this place, which does need to provide that service, but also, kind of notoriously files a lot of evictions, and in some cases uses eviction as a tool to discipline people into paying rent, Barr said, of low-income housing complex where the NPR interviewed him. And right over here, we can see the economic engine of the state, which are gaming companies and casinos. Solving the affordability problem. Bullard, the realtor, said that the down payment is the hardest part about getting customers into homes. She said that some down payment assistance programs exist, but they're not enough to make a dent in the state's lack of affordable housing. If the federal government decreased the price of land, she thinks it would be easier for people to buy homes. Barr, the professor, said that even though Nevadans love to blame Californians for the price of housing, it's not their fault alone. The reason we have an affordable housing shortage is not because of people that are from California, Barr said, but it is added pressure on the market, really more on the home buying market than the rental market though. Barr said there are not sufficient market incentives for businesses to build affordable housing for low-income and homeless people. Presidential candidates have talked about plans to address the soaring housing prices nationwide. Former President Trump has said that building affordable housing brings down property values and said that deporting immigrants would free up more housing. Vice President Harris said she'll build 3 million new housing units, as well as give $25,000 to help first-time home buyers. Whether either of those plans will appeal to voters here remains to be seen. Some Nevadans are turning to family to deal with high costs of living. Potential home buyer Christy poses for a portrait outside an open house in Las Vegas. Paulster Christy Lazaroff, 63, owns a condo she bought with her mom, who is 84 and retired. She goes to open houses for inspiration on decor and to see what's out there. Eventually, she'd like to move the two of them into a bigger condo. Lazaroff lives with her mother because of finances. She wouldn't have been able to afford the condo without her mom. And she likes living in a condo rather than a single-family home. I've seen how expensive it can be to take care of a house compared to a condo, Lazaroff said. It's easier to maintain and clean and take care of when it's just a condo. She considers herself lucky to have gotten the interest rate that she did. I can afford this more than I can afford rent, Lazaroff said. McKenna Ditterline, 22, lives at a home with her mom and uncle to save up for a home. I would love to live in an apartment, honestly, Ditterline said, but my grandpa, my mom, and everybody tells me to save up for a house instead of doing an apartment. She makes minimum wage $12 an hour in Nevada, plus tips as a barista at an upscale coffee shop. Between gas, groceries, her 3 cats, car payments, insurance, and $200 in rent she pays her mom, she says it's been hard saving up for the house. I would prefer to save up my money and live with my mom until I'm 40, if I have to, and then be able to buy a house just so that I can own it and it's under my name, Ditterline said. She says her approach to life at this age is to just ride the wave. You can't really control much that goes on in this world, Ditterline said. So I kind of just wake up, I pay the silly gas prices, I pay the silly grocery prices, I go to work, I do my thing, I go to sleep, I wake up, I do the same process every single day. She tells herself she'll be able to live on her own eventually and believes that she'll figure it out no matter how expensive things are. California's first plastic bag ban made things worse. Now it's trying again. California is banning single-use plastic bags at grocery stores and other retailers after an earlier ban was blamed for making the waste problem worse. Here, a worker pulls a plastic bag from a conveyor belt as she sorts through the materials at a recycling center in San Francisco. 10 years after California approved a plastic ban that's been blamed for making its plastic bag problem worse, the state is banning a single-use plastic bags entirely. In 2014, California became the first state to pass a plastic bag ban. It's one of the at least 12 states that now have some form of ban on single-use plastic bags. But because of a loophole in its initial ban, that allowed grocers to charge for thicker plastic bags. California still dumped 231,072 tons of plastic grocery and merchandise bags in landfills in 2021, according to the state's recycling agency, CalRecycle. That was a sharp increase from the year the ban took effect, and nearly 100 more tons than in 2018. California officials are saying there's a perception that plastics, especially plastic bags, can be easily recycled. But they say that this is not the reality, that consumers have been deceived for decades. CalRecycle has not identified facilities that recycle plastic bags in the state of California, the agency told NPR this week. The state filed a suit on Sunday alleging ExxonMobil promoted the recycling while knowing that it was technically and economically challenging and wouldn't make much of a dent in the plastic waste problem. Here's a rundown of California's new ban and similar measures. Why did California's initial bag ban backfire? The state's ban on thin, single-use bags had a loophole that let grocers sell shoppers thick plastic bags for a small fee, just 10 cents. In theory, the heavier bags were reusable, but in practice, they became a more substantial form of waste. A plastic bag has an average lifespan of 12 minutes, and then it's discarded, afflicting our environment with toxic microplastics that fester in our oceans and landfills for up to 1,000 years. Senator Catherine Blakespear, an author of the new ban, said in news release issued after Governor Gavin Newsom signed the ban into law on Sunday. The initial ban was also undermined by the COVID-19 pandemic. When it was still unknown how the coronavirus spread, shoppers were barred from bringing reusable bags into grocery stores out of fear that their bags might be contaminated. California kind of took one for the team as the first to pass a statewide ban on plastic bags. Melissa Valiant, communications director of the advocacy group Beyond Plastics, told NPR. It ended up proving a lesson for other states and even local governments to learn from and to not allow loopholes like thicker plastic bags. What does the new California law do? Starting on January 1st, 2026, customers at most grocery stores, convenience stores, and other realtors have three main options: pay for at least 10 cents for a paper bag, use a reusable bag, or hand carry their purchase. Stores may offer paper bags at the point of sale, and they can also sell the canvas-style reusable bags in other areas of the store. Nate Rose of the California Grocers Association, which supports the new ban, told NPR. These are the bags many shoppers are already accustomed to bringing with them to carry their groceries, Rose added. And starting in 2028, stores' paper bags will be required to be composed of at least 50% post-consumer recycled materials. More than 70 organizations supported the legislation. Member station LAist reporter saying it would prevent plastic waste, which releases toxic chemicals into the air, water, and soil. California's Attorney General, Rob Bonta, has filed a lawsuit against ExxonMobil, alleging the oil and gas corporation misled consumers by telling them that the recycling was a viable solution for plastic waste in 2021. Some 231,072 tons of plastic, grocery, and merchandise bags went into landfills, according to the state's recycling agency, CalRecycle. What's so bad about plastic bags? Despite industry claims about the recyclability, the thin bags are notoriously difficult and expensive to process and recycle. Instead, they often wind up in landfills, where they will persist for centuries, or in incinerators. For a sense of the scale of the problem, consider Philadelphia. An evaluation commissioned by the city said last year that in Philadelphia, an estimated 1 billion single-use disposable plastic bags are used annually, adding to waste, litter, and emission challenges. Municipal systems, the evaluation stated, are unable to recycle plastic bags, and the soft material causes equipment jamming at recycling centers, leading to dangerous and costly repairs that account for 150 hours of lost staff time and $300,000 in city costs. In contrast, restrictions like bag bans can be expected to eliminate almost 300 single-use plastic bags per person per year on average, according to an analysis by the Environment America and the U.S. Berg Education Fund that was published in January. What does the plastic industry say? Big manufacturers are against bans on their products, and they insist that the thin plastic film bag made of polyethylene makes more sense than the alternatives. A polyethylene bag is 100% recyclable and can be recycled into itself, is produced with low carbon emissions, and the PE is made domestically from natural gas. A general manager of a bag supplier, Crown Poly, said in a 2023 report prepared by Fredonia Custom Research on behalf of an industry group, the American Recyclable Plastic Bag Alliance. Conversely, PP bags are produced overseas and imported, produce higher emissions than film bags, and are not recyclable. In fact, 99% of PP is virgin and does not contain post-consumer recycled material, the report states. Note: while single-use bags can technically be recycled, it's not an easy or cost-effective process. To the extent they get recycled, a lot of polyethylene plastics get turned into low-grade materials. You can't take a plastic bag and then make another plastic bag with the same properties out of it. Chemistry researcher John Harwood of the University of California, Berkeley, said in 2022 as he worked on ways to reuse the ubiquitous material. The American Recyclable Plastic Bag Alliance, another industry group, the Plastic Industry Association, did not respond to NPR's request for comment on the new California ban before this story was published. California will require shoppers to use paper bags or a reusable bag. In this photo from 2007, a woman loads plastic bags of groceries into her car at a Safeway store in San Francisco before the city and later the state adopted a ban on plastic checkout bags. Should people just use paper bags? When bans on single-use plastic haven't also included a fee on paper bags, their use has soared. In Portland, Oregon, for instance, paper bag use shot up nearly 500% after the city enacted a ban, and before the state imposed its own ban with a fee of paper alternatives. A similar dynamic has played out in Philadelphia, where the proportion of a supermarket shoppers using at least one paper bag tripled after a plastic bag ban took effect without a fee for paper. A recent bid to tack on a 15-cent fee for paper bags was axed by a pocket veto. Paper bags are easier to recycle than plastic and more degradable. But environmental advocates want retailers and shoppers to move away from single-use bags of any type. They argue that a few minutes of convenience isn't enough to justify cumbersome networks of bag collection, processing, and production needed to recycle single-use bags. The whole goal is to get people to switch from disposable options, especially plastic, but disposable options altogether, to reusable and refillable options, Valiant said, because ultimately that is going to be the most sustainable and the best for both environment and human health. Which 12 states have banned plastic bags? In 2024, Colorado and Rhode Island enacted statewide bans on single-use plastic bags, joining 10 states that already had restrictions in place. California, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Maine, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington. At their core, such bans are attempts to shift responsibility for plastic waste from consumers upstream to retailers and, by extension, plastic producers. The same week California's new ban became law, the state opened another front in its battle with plastic waste by filing a lawsuit against oil and gas giant ExxonMobil, a leading producer of the polymers used to make single-use plastics. For decades, ExxonMobil has been deceiving the public to convince us that plastic recycling could solve the plastic waste and pollution crisis when they clearly knew this wasn't possible, California Attorney General Rob Bonta said. Bonta accused ExxonMobil of profiting from convincing consumers that they were responsible for the proliferation of plastic waste through their own personal habits, rather than through Mobil and Exxon's efforts to produce an increasing number of plastic products designed for single use. Fragile X held him back. An experimental drug is helping him break free. Jason Mazzola walks at work at the residence of Natick South, an LSCB senior living community. For 22 years, Jason Mazzola's life was defined by Fragile X, a genetic condition that often causes autism and intellectual disability. Jason, who is 24 now, needed constant supervision. He had disabling anxiety and struggled to answer even simple questions. All that began to change when he started taking an experimental drug called Zatomilast in May of 2023. It helps me focus a lot, helps me get more confident and more educated, Jason says. His mother, Lizzie, credits Zatomilast with transforming her son. I have a different child in my house, she says. He gets himself to work, he walks downtown, gets his haircut, gets lunch. He wouldn't have done any of that before. Other parents of children with Fragile X are also reporting big changes with Zatomilast. Those anecdotes are supported by data. A 2021 study of 30 adult male participants with Fragile X found that taking Zata for 12 weeks improved performance on a range of memory and language measures. Now, 2 larger studies are underway that will determine whether Zato becomes the first drug approved by the FDA to treat Fragile X. Brain interrupted. Mazzola realized early that Jason was falling behind. He could hardly talk by 3, she says. At 4, he started to put some words together, but really wasn't talking in sentences. Genetic tests revealed the cause, Fragile X. The inherited condition affects the X chromosome, making one segment appear fragile or broken. This anomaly blocks production of a protein that's important to brain development. The results can be autism, ADHD, anxiety, sensory sensitivity, and a range of intellectual disabilities. For Jason, many of these symptoms were severe. Like many people with Fragile X, his IQ was in the 40s, and he was often paralyzed by anxiety. Jason's twin sister Jessica also has Fragile X, but the symptoms are absent or much milder. That's often true of females with the condition. They typically benefit from having 2 X chromosomes, one of which is unaffected. So while Jessica went on to college, Jason was still barely able to converse, even with his parents. He's always wanted to be social. He's a friendly person, Mazzola says, but because his communication skills were so impaired, he struggled to put his thoughts into words. Jason Mazzola at home with his twin sister Jessica and dog Marley. Repurposing the Alzheimer's drug. By the time Jason was a teenager, scientists had begun studying the link between Fragile X and an enzyme that plays a role in memory and cognitive impairment. Much of the funding for this research came from the FRAXA Research Foundation, a group founded by the parents of a child with Fragile X. FRAXA-funded researchers knew there were drugs that could tweak the enzyme in a way that might help a Fragile X brain work better. But the drugs all had side effects that made them unsuitable for people. Then one day, FRAXA got a call from Tetra Therapeutics, a small drug company in Michigan. They had this drug in clinical trials for Alzheimer's disease, recalls Dr. Michael Transfagula, FRAXA's co-founder and medical director. They wanted to explore the possibility of using their drug in Fragile X. That made sense because the drug targeted the same enzyme FRAXA had been studying, and it didn't seem to cause the side effects that had ruled out similar drugs. The next stop for Tetra was Dr. Elizabeth Berry Gravis, a professor at the Rush University Medical Center in Chicago. Berry Gravis had been studying the way Fragile X affects brain development for nearly 3 decades and was receiving funding from FRAXA. So she got a visit from a Tetra executive. Mark Gurney, who was the head of the company at the time, came to my office and said, "Hey, you've got this mechanism that you've been waiting for a drug for 28 years. And we've got a drug," Berry Gravis recalls. The drug was Zatomilast. A flurry of research showed that Zatomilast worked in fruit flies and mice with Fragile X. The 2021 study of 30 male adults extended the promising results to people. "We saw an improvement in their memory and their vocabulary and their ability to read," Berry Gravis says. The next step was to have Berry Gravis oversee a pair of larger studies, one in males from 9 to 17, the other in males from 18 to 45. The studies got underway in 2022 with a funding from the Japanese drug company Shionogi, who had acquired Tetra. Mazzola decided to enroll her son Jason, who was now in his 20s. She was optimistic about Zato, despite having witnessed the failure of other promising drugs for Fragile X. "It just seemed different," she said. "It was affecting their cognitive IQ scores." At first, Mazzola and her husband didn't know if their son was getting Zato or a placebo. Within a few weeks, though, Jason did something remarkable. He walked into his father's home office and started a conversation. "My husband said he has to be on the drug. He's never done that," Mazzola says. Jason is still taking the drug and still improving. Mazzola says he has a job washing dishes at a local assisted living facility. He helps his mom coach high school hockey and lacrosse. Jason himself offers perhaps the most compelling evidence that the drug is working. At his home in Boston suburb, the young man, who was once paralyzed by simple question, agrees to an interview. When I ask Jason to tell me something about himself, he's got an answer. "I play a lot of sports like hockey, basketball, and golf," he says. "Golf is really fun because I play with my dad." "You good off the tee with the driver?" I ask. "Yeah, the driver," he says, "and the 6 iron and the 7 and the putter." A scientific verdict on the drug will come when the study is completed, probably in 2025.